on this week's Rockstar Superhero. Harry Springer writes all of Moonwalker's music in his bedroom, but the electrifying sounds feel more fitting for a stadium. It's just that good. I'm thrilled that Harry shared so much about his history and what he believes to be his future. So please enjoy this chat with a rising star, Harry Springer of Moonwalker. This is Rockstar Superhero. I feel like there's some references in here that were part of my childhood. And I think what draws me to this sound, this new sound, this compilation of ideas is you were either almost infected in your mind by something maybe your parents were listening to, or maybe you're just a fan of classic blues rock. But I'm hoping you would give my listeners a chance to understand who you are, where you came from, what brought you into this space, why you were so affected by this music. You know, I want to know your journey. Do you mind sharing that with us?
My parents were not the hugest music fans, meaning like it was like always on in the background and stuff. But
Right.
I just grew up pretty much listening to like top 40 radio. Like they would just kind of throw it on as an afterthought and it was on in the background. And then as I kind of started discovering my own artists, then my parents would be like, oh, I love them. You know what I mean? Like my mom grew up loving the Talking Heads. So when I was getting into the Talking Heads, she was very excited. My dad grew up loving Led Zeppelin. My mom grew up loving Pink Floyd.
See, that's the one for me, man. Pink Floyd. Absolutely.
Oh, me too. That's my number one favorite band.
Really?
Absolutely. Number one favorite band.
Good man.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's literally, that's the big four. I'll adjust the statement. That's the big four. No one in my family is like musical, but I always thought the guitar was like cool. Like I remember when I was young, I would like lie to my friends and say that I played guitar when I didn't. So I always kind of saw myself playing guitar, like I wanted to do it. And then I went and saw the Beatles Love Show in Las Vegas.
Sweet.
With my family. And I was like, that was the first time I had like even heard the Beatles, like to give an example of how little my parents played music or anything, or how little I was exposed to anything that wasn't just like on the most accessible radio station. And that was the first time I had heard music like that predated 1990 probably, that I was aware of, at least that I was conscious of. Minus like whatever, like the Stadium, like Don't Stop Believing and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. So that was the first time I really had heard like music that wasn't so ubiquitous and just pop culture. It had become like, you know, it'd been kind of co-opted and repurposed and stuff. And so I heard that and I was like, this is crazy. Like I need to be a part of this. And I begged my parents to get me a guitar, and I was like about to turn 10. So then like for my 10th birthday, I got like a starter guitar kit with like the guitar and the shitty amp and the whatever. And then that was pretty much that. Like I just became obsessed with guitar, and like basically the entire framework of my life changed into pretty similar to exactly what it is now. So there was just like before guitar and then after guitar. In high school, let's say, I started to get more into like the idea of making radio friendly music. Like I think I got sick of like my parents despising the music that I made and listened to. And I was like, I'm going to make something that even my parents like. And so it started with that. Like I remember being young in my high school band and like conversations constantly being about like, oh, radio rock, radio friendly, being able to play on 93.3, which was like the Colorado alternative station. Like it, you know, we got lost in the weeds, but we were young. And so it became about that. And then all the while I was obsessed with like Queen and Bowie and Zeppelin and stuff like that. It probably all changed where I sort of got a little bit more focused on what I liked when I discovered T-Rex, though, specifically, because that was something I did not grow up with. Like I only discovered T-Rex through like my band. That band in like blogs and stuff would get compared to T-Rex. So at some point I was like, I gotta like, let's see what this is all about. And that just kind of like changed my life, really, you know, was discovering that, especially because that was like the first artist that was incredibly influential that I had discovered as like an 18-year-old. You know what I mean? That was the first time that like somebody kind of blew my mind, but I wasn't like a child. I was already like making music and in a band and pretty good at music. And so like that was kind of the first time I was like, I thought I had an understanding of what was going on. This isn't necessarily shaping like my understanding or like my kind of foundation. This is sort of like informing what my next steps are going to be. So I got super into T-Rex, and that led me very much down the rabbit hole of like Pink Floyd, in general, enjoying all of the kind of retro rock stuff.
So more vibe then. All of a sudden it was vibe.
Exactly, the vibe.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what got me super into, like, you know, I expanded into like Black Sabbath and Roxy Music and all the kind of 70s stuff, which getting super into that sort of, you know, led me pretty naturally into like the Talking Heads and stuff like that, and the more post-punk stuff that I previously hadn't really been exposed to very much of, you know. And the Talking Heads influence is probably incredibly apparent in Moonwalker, because I was discovering Talking Heads really as I was starting Moonwalker. So that was like kind of like how T-Rex blew my mind when I was like not in my foundation anymore.
Right.
Talking Heads were like what T-Rex was to me when I was 18, but when I was like 22, let's say, you know. So that was a huge thing. Kind of like I reevaluated what I liked about music and what I wanted to do as a musician and as an artist and stuff. So Talking Heads are huge, and still probably when I'm doing Moonwalker stuff, like I've studied Pink Floyd and T-Rex and Bowie and all that so much that it's just kind of like in my DNA. I'm rarely like, oh, it'll be like that one T-Rex song. Like, oh, what's the bass doing in this T-Rex song? I don't really do that anymore. But sometimes I definitely still do that with like Talking Heads. And then all that sort of led me into like the more recent version of that is maybe like 90s industrial stuff, like Primal Scream and Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
Mezzanine. So like that those things maybe inspire me more on like a conscious level. And then all the things like Black Sabbath and T-Rex, Pink Floyd, all that is just so in my DNA that no matter what I ever do, it's just going to be there. Like that was what sort of got me to where I am, you know?
Yeah. It's like you're a boomer, man.
It really
you know,
is. And
you're born in the wrong generation.
Seriously. And I'll even like listen to newer music, and it's like, I'll have the bad habit of like, if it doesn't resemble the things I like in any way, like if I can't pick out anything about it that is familiar to me, I'll kind of be like, I don't exactly get the point of this. But a lot of the times, if I'll find something that will remind me of an artist that I like, I'll kind of be like, well, I'd rather just listen to that artist. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
I've got kind of a bad habit of that with like the, you know, a certain band who sounds a lot like Led Zeppelin and being like, okay, this is cool. This reminds me of what I like. And then one song later being like, there's no reason for me not to just listen to Led Zeppelin right now. You know, and I've got kind of a bad habit of that. Like, oh, this is cool because it reminds me of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but you know what you like.
Exactly. And then being like, I don't care about this because I'd rather listen to the thing I already like, you know. I've got a bad habit of that, which is very kind of like the music was better back in my day type bullshit, you know.
Well, you know what? The thing is that when you get older, you really do discover, and I don't want to say that it's better, although I do believe, you know, that I grew up in the 70s, right? The late 60s, early 70s. So everything in my brain is agreeing with you 100%. I know exactly what's down with what you're talking about, but I like all types of music, and that's because I'm a listener, I'm a musician, I'm a performer myself. So it makes sense that I would have a lot of influence. The thing that I find interesting that didn't happen to you, because you didn't mention one of them, is you didn't get touched by the prog bug. You didn't get touched by the 70s, the Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Kansas, Rush, Styx. None of that stuff has been on the tip of your tongue. Is there a reason, or is it too complex? Is it not groove enough? Why didn't it touch you? Maybe is a way to.
No, that's actually a really good question, especially because like Pink Floyd is a lot of people's bridge from sort of classic rock into prog.
Right.
I don't think they're a prog band. A lot of people say they are.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that, but I grew up loving one really important band that I forgot to mention that's incredibly crucial to a lot of what I listen to is My Chemical Romance. That was probably my bridge back when I was younger into like Bowie, and part of what made me really appreciate a lot of the bands I've gotten into throughout the course of my life. Bowie, T-Rex, Supergrass.
Wow. Nice reference.
Supergrass, I can't believe I forgot to mention, easily one of my favorite bands. Supergrass and Spoon are pretty much what like taught me how to sing, kind of like, you know, discovering that. Again, not super young, in my 20s. Discovering those when I was kind of like, my band was breaking up and I didn't know what to do next. That was kind of what I learned. Like, I could sing, you know what I mean? First of all, these guys in Mark Bolan look sick when they're playing a guitar and singing. They're great front people. And also, this is in my range. I can sing like this. So those are crucial bands. I can't believe I forgot to mention them. They're incredibly important. But I do remember loving concept albums as a result of my chem, which was kind of my bridge into Pink Floyd. Was like, nobody has ever made better albums than Pink Floyd, in my opinion. Even to this day, I couldn't pick a favorite band or whatever. Sometimes I say Pink Floyd, or I'll say T-Rex, or I'll say Bowie, but like realistically, I couldn't choose between them. But I do think that Pink Floyd made the best albums. I agree. Metal to the Wall is like 5, maybe I'd even say 6, like with Obscured by Clouds, 6 of like the top 20 greatest albums ever made. You know what I mean? And there's no other artist that has just that many albums and the greatest albums ever made. You know what I mean? To me, in my favorite albums. Yeah. So I became really obsessed with kind of concept albums, and that did lead me into trying to get into bands like Styx and Yes, and like that's a big thing in prog. And Genesis, which I actually would say there was a moment there where I really loved Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and Duke, and like there were some Genesis records that I really did love, and if I heard them now, I'd probably still fucking love them. You know, like so I did kind of get into prog, but maybe it just didn't. Maybe just I didn't stay super obsessed with concept albums long enough. Like at some point I was like, yeah, concept albums are sick, but now I also really appreciate just like great songwriting and all these other things that kind of got me sidetracked from that. I do like Rush for sure. Like I definitely like Rush. It didn't really ever maybe, grab my attention in the same way. I think that if you love drums and stuff, then you're gonna get. I was always like a guitar guy, and Alex Lifeson's guitar stuff is sick, but was not sick in the exact same way that I was looking for. Like Jimmy Page kind of epitomized what I was looking for in a guitar player until I discovered David Gilmour, and then that epitomized what I was looking for in a guitar player. Yeah, and then someone like Brian May he scratches my metal itch, he scratches my melodic itch, he scratches my shred itch, my rock itch. So like there's other things like that. And Alex Lifeson is probably in more like dealing in textures and interesting tones and stuff.
As you were saying that, all I could think of is that you've been talking about guitarists that affect you because there's a feel to them. And it's the kind of thing where you can not only hear how they play, but there's something that they're creating, something that they're putting into the ether that touches your soul. Where Lifeson, I agree with you 1,000%. Yeah. I think he's one of the most unfairly underrated guitarists out there because he's in a band where everybody is at top of game. Yeah. But it's all texture because somebody has to play the texture, or else it's 3 guys soloing.
It's just going absolutely crazy, and there's no music. Exactly.
It's totally bonkers. And Queen, there's a drama to what Queen created. In that band, you had Roger and John holding down that foundation, because really, when you look at Queen from the very beginning, even before disco, they were in a lot of ways a disco band. They were sort of programmed for that. I mean, when it came along, eventually they just fell right into it. Like that was where they were to be the whole time, right?
That was their second one, starting at the Works. I mean, and even some stuff on Hot Stuff. Is it?
Well, they had Hot. I mean, well, that's
that
just
one's fine. But we got under pressure with that one.
That's an embarrassment.
We got under pressure. I mean, like,
I get you. The game, man. The game is the one with
amazing.
Yeah, with another one bites the dust. And Dragon Attack, and I mean,
Save Me. The song "The Game" is one of my favorite Queen songs.
Absolutely, I prefer I prefer Jazz. That's my favorite Queen record, which is the obscure record. I want to say 78, maybe 79. But to me, it's the bridge between the old Queen, the news of the world Queen, the hyper operatic Queen, to the modern Queen that honestly lost a lot of fans. But I was such a Freddie fan that it really didn't matter. And that allows me actually to segue into what I've been thinking about you. I'm not going to compare you to Freddie Mercury or Robert Plant or anybody else that you're influenced by. And I think it's important. The T-Rex thing is fair.
Yes.
And the reason I think the T-Rex thing is fair is because he did something for you that no other artist has done. He ran the 4-minute mile, and he did it right in front of you, and he showed you the methodology. He showed you the math, how to be a rock star. And I'm telling you, Harry, even though we're just meeting today, the one thing I recognized about you immediately when I first heard your material was, oh, this is a guy who understands the feeling of being a rock star. The way you've created the music, the way it's the feeling of what you've put together that bands like Greta Van Fleet, Wolf Mother, there's these certain groups or certain individuals who've created a sound that pulls you in, but then you start to notice that you're digging the stylistics of what the artist is creating versus just the music,
songs and stuff. Yeah,
it's really both. And I'm curious, what's your take on that outside of being embarrassed?
Oh, thank you so much. I guess so. Mark Bolan is the perfect segue into that, because like I'm really not singers like Freddie Mercury and like those kind of early guys. I never even considered at the time of really studying those guys. It never even occurred to me that I could sing. I was of the mindset like, I can't sing. I can do the rest. I need a singer. And so it never occurred to me like, oh yeah, I'll sing like him. It just wasn't. That's why like when I discovered T-Rex, that was maybe the first time that I was like, and I also always wanted a front man. I loved Queen and I loved Bowie and I loved My Chem and so I was like, it's not a rock band without a front man.
Correct.
The guitar player can be cool, but it's not. Or Robert Plant, it's not a rock band without a front man. I need a front man, and I can't sing. So whatever. These are the guys I like. I want to form a band like them. I want to find a singer like them, but it'll never be me. And then discovering T-Rex was kind of the first time I was like, okay. First of all, he's cooler than all of them. He's the coolest performer there ever has been, and he has a guitar the whole time. He never takes off the guitar. Always has a guitar, whether he's playing it or not, and he's the coolest performer ever. And also, he's always singing in my range. He's never going crazy. He's never doing insane stuff. He's not like, this is all stuff I could sing right now. And he's got a voice that's not super dissimilar to my singing voice. So that was kind of like seeing him was, and even on a smaller level of like, when my hair would start to get a little too long, it would start to get curly. And then I'd get the Jufro comments and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I can't have that. And then seeing him, and my sister always had hair like mine. So I knew that was what my hair would look like if I grew it out. And seeing him, I was like, he's the coolest looking human being on the planet. So I'm going to grow my hair out. Like it was a lot viewing myself as a potential singer, considering growing my hair out, considering being a front person, my approach to writing music, my kind of always being like, oh, it's got to have interesting progressions. It's got to have crazy key changes. I can't reuse the same keys all the time. I can't reuse. Discovering him was kind of like, no, he writes every single thing in the same key and nothing blows your mind. It's just all perfect. It's just all exactly right. The perfect vehicle for him as a singer and a lyricist and a guitar player and a musician, period. Even though he's not like forcing all of these kind of musically complex things, which there's a place for that. And I certainly, try to find a balance between everything, but like giving myself a pass to sort of like, okay, I've made songs with this chord progression before. This chord progression is in other songs. This isn't necessarily going to blow anyone's mind. I don't really care. Like it's a vehicle for the lyrics and the melody and the feeling of it is a big thing too. It was like T-Rex's music kind of makes you like, above everything else, above it getting stuck in your head or it making you really provoking a lot of thoughts lyrically or whatever, it kind of just like feels like it's full of like swagger. Like it makes you walk a certain way. You know what I mean? And that's like, you could throw on an entire, like Electric Warrior is probably the best example of it. Like the entire record, you could listen to it and not even really care about which song is which or anything like that. The entire record just has this kind of like swagger to it. And so in starting Moonwalker, I was kind of like, I'm not going to care about crazy production. I'm not going to care about crazy arrangements and crazy key changes and anything. At its core, I want it to have that same kind of like mojo, sort of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So T-Rex was like crucial to all those things. The most for those particular aspects of what I'm doing. T-Rex is like the band. You know what I mean? Mark Bowen is the reason that I took that left turn. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so I really owe that all to him. And then as I've gotten better at singing, Freddie Mercury will always be in another world. But like as I've gotten better at singing, it's like, okay, I can start to kind of pull more inspiration from Bowie and Gerard Way, and not to say that they are not as good as Freddie Mercury or something like that, but I will never have that kind of crazy fucking voice that he has. Whereas I think Bowie and Gerard Way, they use their voice in an incredible way. They stretched it as far as they could. And they appear to have ranges not super dissimilar to mine, and they appear to have kind of lyrical approaches not super dissimilar to mine, so I can pull more inspiration. Freddie Mercury and stuff, and Robert Plant, I'll just never be able to do that. Like, that's just
right.
They got different fucking vocal cords than me. It's never gonna happen, you know.
You mentioned swagger. I think that's the word. That really is the word, because when you look at everybody down the line, everything that you've been touching on today is all about the feeling. Again, going back to the feeling. Now it's not the feeling of the sound. It's the feeling of the person. It's the cool factor. And here's the thing. I'm a musician, so I get this. But so many people who are outside this, they sort of roll their eyes at this idea of a feeling because they just want the song to work. It either works or it doesn't work.
And they don't know what makes it work or not work. They just know what, agree.
Right. But when you go to a concert, people, what you're responding to is the visceral feeling of what you're hearing and what you're experiencing. You're going to see a band, right? When you're listening on the radio, it's all about how it touches that inner gooey part of you that doesn't make any sense, that you don't know how to explain. It's actually spiritual. It's a soul thing. You're putting it all together in your mind. Listening to a song is like reading a book. You're creating the story up here. I mean, it blows me away how fast you've come up, is that you just said, oh, I don't care. I'm going to do what feels right. Like you said, it isn't about writing the perfectly cool riff or making sure you've hit every key or whatever, or let me wow you with this. You're just being pure. And the purity is what people respond to, because what they say, Harry, is they say, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I like it.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Audiences respond only to one thing, and that's purity. That's the only thing they respond to.
Absolutely. And there's been other artists mentioned on this that, you know, like, you never want to feel like a stylist dressed, even if they didn't. There's a feeling when a stylist dressed the band. There's a feeling when a producer took a band in a direction that didn't feel right. Even if that's not the case, you can just feel when somebody is acting very much only on impulse. Like, this feels right, so I do it. This feels wrong, so I don't. Versus when somebody is acting on logic of like, oh, well, logically, this is successful. Logically, this is what made this thing work, so I'll take this. Logically, this is what people are doing right now. Logically, there's a gap to fill. Logically, you can feel that, you know what I mean? And all these other things, like, that everyone gets fixated on different things. But like, for me, it was like, it has to be an interesting chord progression. If it's not an interesting chord progression, there's nothing. It has to have the chorus come in at a certain amount of time. The chorus has to get second right, blah, 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 blah. All these things just get in the way of doing what feels right. Logic has very little place in songwriting. It has more of a place in production and how you arrange something. But logic should never, in my opinion, ever factor into just the core of a song. That should be purely like just relying on your instincts, you know, and your taste.
How do you deal with being where you are right now? I mean, things are starting to pop for me. People are starting to pay attention. I mean, Justin Hawkins, man, who's one of the most influential performers of all time, who is the modern T-Rex.
Yeah.
I saw that he listened to one of he's like, who is this guy? And why do I care? And by the end, he's like, wow, I mean, I get this. How does that feel to be you at this moment in time?
Oh, good question. I guess I have probably like the first slight bit of like stability that I have had like ever. Like now, just like being back from tours, kind of like the first time that I've been like, I can take a break. Not even like I'm gonna take 6 months off.
Right. I'm so wealthy.
Like, exactly. Like but like where it's not like I wake up and I'm like, if I didn't work on a song or further my career in some way, it was a failure of a day. I can be like, no, today I played Spider-Man 2 and I had a great day. And tomorrow I'll fucking do it again. You know, like, it's the first time where I feel like stable and like I can kind of focus on like, you know, happiness in myself and not just like furthering the career. I would kind of try to impose like, I've got to get there. I've got to get stability. I've got to get an income. I've got to get these things. And I can't like rest until I do.
Don't gotta live no scandal. Elected lawmaking politicians have got it handled. They sell you corporatism and wrap it up in freedom. I like to keep my God close, but the devil closer.
And, you know, working on music would be kind of the one time that I wasn't thinking about all the ways in which I wanted my life to be going and it wasn't and all that, you know. And now I just kind of have like, I'm in a position where like the money is like fine. The money is stable enough in all the ways that money in music is completely fucked up. One of the ways it's not is that like, it's all residual and it's all ethically residual. You know, the way that you make residual income in every other field is someone's doing the work and you're profiting off of it.
Right. You're riding the wave a bit. Yeah.
No, exactly. In music, it literally is like, this month I will get paid for work that I did 2 years ago. Like I will not, apart from tour, I will not get paid this month for a song I do this month. That's not how, if I take the year off, that will not affect me this year. That will affect me next year, 2 years, whatever, you know what I mean? But like, so that is one interesting thing about music where like all the work that I've done the past several years is technically what's kind of affording me the life that I have at the moment. And so then I can sort of take all that out of the equation and I can just make music when I want to, how I want to, the way I want to. Now I have even realizing now, and like this is a brand new realization that I'm kind of in the process of having. Now I can like think about having cool merch. Now I can think about how I want to make a record. It's not like, well, if I want to make a record, it's going to be for free in my studio right there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I'm going to have to do it myself because that's the only way to have strings on the record is to figure out how to do strings for free. The only way to have synth is to figure out how I can play the synth. Like now I can kind of be like, hey, like I way prefer your bass playing to my bass playing. Can I give you some money and you'll come play bass on my record? Like, oh, I love this guy's work on this record. I wonder how much he is. Maybe he'll do that on my record. Oh, you know, like I can start to, and that's a realization that I'm literally in the process of having, like being on tour and looking at my merch and being like, this is fucking stupid merch. Like we have money for merch. Let's get like good merch. Like, what is this? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or like pulling up to a terrible hotel and being like, what? This is stupid. Like, I don't want to play a show and then go to a shit hotel. Like, we don't need to penny pinch. We can like, let's have a comfortable living accommodation while we're here. Let's have you know what I mean? What are we doing? What's the point of making the money if not to make a better record or even make a record under more comfortable circumstances or something like that? Like, so that's like a brand new thing that I've not yet really started doing. I'm just in the process of having that realization where I'm like, with my band on tour going like, why do I have to do this thing where I go work on a record by myself at my house and then we go play it live and I'm like, oh, fuck, I wish you played bass on the record. That's way better. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need for that. I can think about like, what's going to make the best record? And I have the resources within reason to do that. What's going to make us perform the best? Because it's certainly not like sleeping on the floor of like some garbage hotel that hasn't been cleaned in years. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to produce the best concert tomorrow. We're going to be very pissed off and sleep deprived.
For sure.
Like, what's going to get me excited to show up and tell people go to the merch table? It's not this ugly ass shirt. It's going to be a cool shirt. It's like, and we can kind of start to do that or like, oh, we have money on this next tour to get a sound person so that 50% of the shows aren't marred by absolutely horrific sound people where the venue's going, sorry, he's new. Like, like it doesn't really matter. The audience doesn't give a fuck. Like this is a concert. Like I can't be like, hey, sorry, it sounds absolutely terrible out there. This is his first time doing this. Like we can start to kind of do this.
Control your destiny. Yeah,
exactly. We can control the destiny. We can, you know, just like widen. And like, I'm sure that if I were to make a record the exact same way that I've been making a record, for the fourth record in a row, it would start to sound a bit monotonous. So I'm happy that now I can start to lean on other people's skill sets and their taste and let that kind of help inform mine. And I can start to, I love, especially as somebody who has had to do everything myself, I love the idea of being like, wait, I like your music videos. I'm going to give you money and you're going to do the music video. I know a lot of people, and, you know, like I talked to Tom about some of his other clients and whatever, like where they kind of are uncomfortable taking hands off. That was me at some point. But now that like I've done it all for so long and I've spent so long like as a pseudo director being like, I want it to be like this director. I want it to be like this director. It's pseudo producer. You know what I mean? Like faking it till I made it in a lot of these ways.
Sure.
Now I can be like, well, no, who's good at that? What's their rate? Great. I'm hiring you because you're better than me. I'm hiring you because I like what you do. So do your thing. I don't need to stand over your shoulder and guide you any which way, because for a long time, I was the only one who could do it. And the game I was playing was not like in some ways as like a songwriter or something. Mm-hmm. It's like, how can I get the best song? But then in some ways, directing the music videos, it's like, how can I get as close to a real music video as possible? I'm not thinking like, what's the best possible music video? I'm not even a director, so I can't, that's not even in the cards. I'm just like, how can I kind of trick you into thinking I'm a real director? How can I like trick you into thinking I'm a real blah, blah, blah. And now I can sort of be like, who do I want to work with?
Right. Get your
do
team.
Your job. Great. I trust you. It's going to be fantastic. Even with Tom, you know, like when I got a manager every other manager I've had, I've been like, I want to be successful. How can you make me successful? When I got Tom, I was like, there's too many emails to reply to. And I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it. So now my email has thousands of unanswered emails, and I'm just going to act like that problem doesn't exist. You know, it became like I want you to do your job because I don't want to do your job, and someone has to.
Yeah, and you don't have
I'm
to.
not interested in that.
The core tenet of this show is all about the artist and the creativity, but also the insanity of being an artist. It is hard to be a creative person in a world that is loaded with people who don't understand what is wrong with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are born insane, and we take our insanity and we process it through whatever
insane
we've learned,
means.
right? Through insane means, and whatever we've learned in life, whatever's influenced us, whoever has influenced us, and it's brought us to this moment. How do you keep yourself sane in an insane business? How are you making it through?
That's a great question. And there is kind of the tortured artist thing, and you make better art when you're blah, blah. And like, I still obviously have like rough days and rough weeks and rough months. And you know what I mean? And even when I'm happy, like underlying things that kind of linger and come in and out. I will say that maybe the biggest thing that went from me being unhappy 90% of the time and letting that motivate me, letting it be like, well, I have to do this so I can be happy. I'm not happy if I'm not working on music, or I won't be happy until I have some stability here. So I have to work until that's there. And I do think that for the first time in my life, probably, I'm genuinely happy because like I'm allowing myself sort of, and I don't know that this could be just a mental shift where I just changed my mindset. And this could be getting somewhere in my career where, and it's obviously where I want to be is not where I am. That's
sure.
It always will be for every human being in every instance ever.
We have a giant hole in our hearts. We don't even know what it is, but
and it will never be filled. But that's the motivation. That's why you keep making records and keep doing shows and that's why you keep doing whatever it is that you like doing, is because you feel like there's still some ground to cover. There's still some reason. Even like there's that interview Scorsese did recently where he's like, I'm so bummed. I just figured out how to really make movies, and now I'm about to die. You know what I mean?
That's how I feel.
Like it takes so long. Well, not to say he's about to, but it takes a long time to make movies.
Yes.
He's in his 80s.
Yeah, Kurosawa was the same way. 80s plus,
there's
blind.
Only so many movies he can make.
Right.
Even if he spends every waking moment on this earth making movies, he certainly can't make more than 10 movies because it takes too long to make a movie. And every time I make a song, I'm like, oh man, fuck all that other shit. Like, this is the only thing. There's all these, every time I play a show, I'm like, oh, that was garbage. Let's fucking do this again tomorrow. You know what I mean? Or even if it's like, oh, that one was amazing. Imagine tomorrow's show. You know what I mean? Like, there's always this kind of like, I have to keep going. But like, literally within the last month or two, I used to be in interviews and people would ask like, oh, what do you do outside of music? And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like I watch movies, but even then, when the movie starts to move me in any way, shape, or form, I'm like, oh, how can I apply this to music? How can I make a song about this? What's the concept here? How can I use this? Every single thing I ever did, I was consciously thinking of how to apply it to forward motion, because I needed forward motion. And only recently have I been kind of like getting interested in other things that are not musical and not forcing myself to be like, how can I apply my love of comic books to music? It's just like, no. I'm happy when I read a comic book. It needs to be no more complicated than that. Like, I'm happy when I do this. Great. I'm happy when I watch this show, play this video game. I'm happy when I do these things. I'm happy when I play guitar with no intention. It used to be like, I played guitar every day, but only for the record. I was never just like picking up a guitar and fucking around until like I just got this new guitar that I'm like obsessed with. And one of my favorite activities is just picking it up and playing, not writing riffs, not recording, not like literally just fucking around on the guitar. And literally just playing Spider-Man 2 that I was so excited to play when I got back from tour, and just like literally just giving myself the permission to be happy about things, being on tour and being like, fuck it, like let's go to Universal tomorrow, and it will have nothing to do with the tour, and it will set us back on driving, and it will be a band expense, and it will be all these things that we will literally, and I'll probably lose my voice a little bit, and it will be fun, and it will make me happy on a personal level, which will take some weight off my shoulders from the creation process and from the show, and it will probably have a positive effect on those things anyway. But like, I do think that, which is not to say that I don't have shitty weeks, months, days, whatever.
Right.
But like, it used to be like, if I woke up and I was feeling bad, if I didn't have a TikTok that went viral, or if I didn't make a song, or if I didn't make some progress in some capacity, then it was a failure. I'd go to sleep feeling worse than I felt in the morning. Now I can wake up, feel shitty, and be like, you know what? I'm going to watch a movie. And I'll watch the movie and I'll feel a little better. And I'll take kind of some weight off my shoulders. And then I'll be like, you know what? Now I'm feeling okay to work on music. Like, I'm just giving myself kind of a pass. It's not like you have to feel miserable until you make progress. Because then the truth is, when I would make the progress, it's not like I would be like, oh, thank God, I have a video doing well. I'd be like, good. Mm-hmm. That's what I needed. Fine. Now I can kind of take some weight off my shoulders a little bit. Like, I'll allow myself to feel a little bit better or something like that. Now it's just like, I'm allowing myself to like have a life and letting other things in my life besides progress and success kind of make me happy. And again, beautiful. I don't know if I would love to say that was just a mindset shift and I just got more mature and realized that wasn't everything. But part of it might be that, like, I get depressed a lot, but I also like some weeks it's just like a shitty week and I just feel depressed. But then sometimes logical depression will set in and I'll be like, okay, well, not only am I feeling shitty, but also I haven't had a video do well in a month.
Right.
Wrote a song in a month. Right. I haven't done, and it's like, not only is it maybe not my month, but also like logically speaking, I'm down on myself. Like this isn't like a chemical imbalance. I'm also actually disappointed in how little I've gotten done. Mm-hmm. And those things can kind of meet up and it becomes like debilitating, where you can hardly like get out of bed, let alone leave the house and to, take showers and shit like that. It's like, it can get really bad. And now I just kind of have gotten to a place where anytime the logical depression sets in, I can kind of be like, you're lucky. Like, you're in a good place. You worked really hard to get to this place. Logically, you've got no reason to feel bad. That doesn't mean that I can't have bouts of depression, but I can always thwart off the logical depression kind of. Yeah. I can't always, the chemical imbalance comes and goes, but like the thing where I'm like, well, you haven't done anything. You're not where you want to be. You could be making progress here. That I've kind of given myself a pass to be like, no, logically speaking, you've got literally nothing to be sad about. That doesn't mean that you can't be bummed, but like, logically speaking, you're kind of being a pretentious douche by being like, oh,
well, you've learned how to compartmentalize it. That's really what it is.
Exactly.
And that's actually quite amazing, Harry, because that isn't common Not only is that not common in general, but it is certainly not common in the artistic creative community, because it's so much about how I feel and how much this is impacting me. And I thought this would occur. Like, one of my biggest things, and I use this as a reference because maybe you can go off of this, but I always thought, well, I was made to be this. I was made for success. I was made to be a fantastic drummer. I was made to change the world. When I die, the world cries. Absolutely. That sort of thinking, that grandeur, that narcissism, all that bull crap.
Which is almost essential when you're young. There's almost if you thought about things logically, you'd be like, fuck this.
But some people keep it forever, Harry. It's like some people, I actually really hate to admit this out loud, but I do carry this weird, well, how come I never popped? How come that thing never happened for me? Or then the jealousy of helping a friend's band connect with the right promotions or the right A&R guy, and then they pop, and I'm like, well, what about,
why what I mean?
Like, why is nobody looking out for me? And the thing that you're showing me, even right now, and certainly for the listeners, is there's a moment of clarity that has to happen for you where you realize, can't this just be enough? Can't this moment just be enough? Can't I just say, I'm good. I'm good with this. The gratitude thing is giant. And you hear people talk about it all the time. But if you're stuck in this state of anger or frustration or whatever, right? Just circumstances, if you don't let gratitude in, you will be eaten up. Absolutely destroyed. And I love that you have this grace under pressure, to use a Rush quote. But to me, that's your identity, is just this confidence and gratitude. What do you think?
Oh man, that's very I completely feel I actually like that thought of kind of like, it's going to work out because it's meant to be, because there's fate, and this is what I was made for, and I feel it and I know it, and nobody can convince me otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's slowly left, only because I was like, mine was maybe like too focused always. Like, I was always like, yeah, this band is meant to be the biggest band in the world. This band, that's what this is. I'm meant to be. And then that band would break up, and I'd think, oh, yeah, it was this band, this. And then at some point just kind of realizing, like, maybe that's all bullshit, and just my worldview changing, and about things happen for a reason, and which I think is true, but I think that you give them the reason, you know what I mean? So, like,
for sure.
And actually, it's a song that I wrote for my old band, the Midnight Club, which is one of the few songs we ever released, called Star Child, was kind of a message to myself about, like, I thought I was the shit. I thought I was sent, like, God's gift to earth. Everything was meant to be the way it was. This is how fate is going to go on. And then kind of realizing, like, that's not exactly how things go. I definitely still deal with, like, oh, how come that band got that to it? I deserve that. How, you know what I mean? Like, how come this is happening for you? I deserve that. Starting Moonwalker was big because, like, my other band had some level of success. Never stability, never financial stability, but, like, when I was young, I was like, as long as someone listens to my music, like, I was working on records all the time, and I was like, if I could release to a audience, like, if I release it and I know for a fact that even 1,000 people will listen, that's all I want. Before I had an understanding of money, that's all I want. That's all I need. And then I got that in that band, where it was like, we could release a song with no promotion at all, and some people will listen. That's crazy. There are people who care enough that they'll listen. Not a crazy amount, but. And then it was like, wow, it'd be great if my parents didn't have to help me with rent. It'd be great if I didn't have to drive for Uber to help pay for things. Like, that would be awesome. At the end of that band, going into Moonwalker, I was like, if I can ever just do one thing and rent is covered, I'll be happy. And kind of constantly reminding myself of that. It's like, oh, I want to headline Glastonbury and blah, blah. But it's like, no, really, if I don't have to do a bunch of odd jobs and weird shit to make rent, that's success. I could die like that. That could be the whole thing, and I'd be happy.
I'm afraid I'll go to heaven. That's why I'm hoping that I'm right.
And for years and years and years of it not being that way, and myself telling myself, like, nope, reminder, you don't need to headline a sold out world tour playing stadiums. You don't need that. You don't need the number one album in the world. You don't need 100 Grammys. You don't need any of that. You just want to pay rent. Like, and that was kind of my thing, was like, that's all I really care about. And then just before Moonwalker, I was paying rent doing like sound library stuff, where doing music is like a delicate house of cards, where like you get your artistic fulfillment, you get your kind of real world capitalist running the rat race fulfillment. You've got all these things that sometimes can help each other, but sometimes they're different. And so it was like I was getting my sort of financial fulfillment of being like, so sick. Like, I can wake up today, make a song, and get paid for the song. That's crazy. I can get paid for the work that I do, which is rare for a musician. Cool, but I was getting zero artistic fulfillment at all. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll do something else for artistic fulfillment. I'll do this for financial fulfillment. I'll do this to get better. I'll do this for my collaborative fulfillment. I'll do all these things. And then when Moonwalker started doing well, and I was like, I can do only Moonwalker. Then the machine became a bit better oiled, where like, this gives me this gives me artistic fulfillment. And then if I promote it properly, it gives me financial fulfillment. And I just kind of had to like force myself, and still to this day had to force myself, being like, all that you really want was to be able to pay rent, and you can. So all this other shit is not worth worrying about. It's just not worth worrying about. It'd be one thing if I was like, oh, well, my only goal is this. And then a month later I accomplished that. And then I'm like, oh, my only goal is this. And then a month later I accomplished that. No, I had goals for years. I was like, if only I had an audience for my music. Then I had an audience. Then I was like, if only I could pay rent. For years, that was my goal. For years, I was like, if only I could pay rent doing music. And I couldn't. Logically, all you really need in life is to be able to like pay rent and bills and for food and be happy. Like, logically, everything else is, as long as you can kind of remind yourself and keep perspective on that, then I think you can avoid kind of that bottomless pit of like wanting more from consuming your everyday, if you're every fucking moment, you know what I mean? So I think that just putting touring into play and some deals and stuff like that gives bigger sums of money that buys a little bit of time in some instances, you know what I mean? But generally speaking, it's still kind of like, it's still obviously tight, but just knowing that for so many years, and not as some stupid kid who didn't know shit about shit, like for many years as a person paying rent, this was my only goal. To have it now, I kind of have to constantly remind myself when things get shitty or when things aren't going the way that I want them to, because it ebbs and flows. Sometimes
yeah, for sure,
with very little effort, things go exactly how you want them, and sometimes with all the effort in the world, things are just not going how you want them to. Yeah. Even in those moments, I've got to be like, but I like my apartment, and I like my music, and I like my output, and I like the fact that I have a tour on the horizon, and I like all these other things that have nothing to do with music at all. I like these things. They make me happy. There's a lot of things in life that bring me joy, and I just kind of I force myself to appreciate them, because for so many years I was just telling myself, oh, if only I had this, if only I had this. So it's almost like, are you a fucking liar? Like, for a long time you said you'd be happy if you had that. You do. So like, you're kind of a douchebag for complaining right now, you know? Right. So I think it was just like, for the sake of my sanity, I was like, it's not realistic to be like, I'm going to be the biggest band in the world, but it is realistic to say, what if I could pay rent doing this one day? Yeah. And I was kind of always like, that's the goal. Yeah. The goal is to have that and to make the best records. And also in Moonwalker, for a while, I didn't even have an audience. Like, for a while, it was like I went from having an audience in the Midnight Club to literally not having an audience in Moonwalker. I released my first record with no one gave a shit. And I released that first record and no one cared. And that affected me in certain ways. And it forced me to reevaluate my view on why I'm doing this and what's going on here. And I pretty much came to the consensus of like, listen, even if I have to do other stuff for money, as long as I can make records, because there was a time when making records was really expensive, not just for the world, but for me. It was really expensive to get studio time and get a mix engineer and a mastering engineer and all these things. And then in Moonwalker, I figured out how to do it for free. I figured out how to record everything by myself, mix everything by myself. I could make a record on a budget of $0. And I was like, as long as I can always get the ideas in my brain onto a record and I can listen to it, then that's good. And the fact that no one's listening is a bummer, but at least I can make the record and I can have the record. And there is a benefit, which I know, that when you finish a song, listening to that song is awesome. Like listening to that song is fucking cool. You know, that's like a feeling that can't really be like replicated. Nothing else gives you that feeling of being able to listen to something that didn't exist 24 hours ago. And now it does, and you can listen to it and no one else does. And you're thinking, oh, it's going to blow people's minds when they hear this. And this is so cool. And what's next? I can't wait to go make more stuff. And so when I was able to figure out that I don't need money to make a record to keep myself happy, my perspective shifted. And then now I'm kind of shifting it back to like, oh shit, I have resources. I can make a better album.
Right.
And I can let more people do their job, and I can be in awe of the job that these people have done. Like, I had a keyboard player play on some songs on my new record, and I still listen to those songs and go like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm still listening. Like, when you listen to a record you love and you listen to it for the 1,000th time and you're like, I never noticed that fill. I never noticed this stuff. I don't have that with Truth to Power. Like, it's like, oh, yep, there's the guitar. There's that guitar lead I did. Now that I listen with some space between me, I wish it was turned up louder. Oh, man, I really wish that I processed the kick in a different way. Oh, I know every single thing happening, so I can go, oh, there's that bass. Realistically, it should have been turned up. Whereas, like, I really like listening to my own records going, damn, that's sick. What's he doing on the keys there? I like that, you know? And so, like, I was able to kind of be like, damn, I'm able to make records for free. That's sort of all I want. And now I can be like, I have resources while making these records. I might as well kind of like blow my own mind with my own albums, or let somebody else blow my mind on my album. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like hire someone who's better than me at that job to do that so that I can be as in awe of the production on my album as I am in awe of the production on somebody else's album. You know what I mean? Or the playing or something like that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, you know what it is? And I've noticed this the entire conversation. There's a simple joy in knowing that what you've made exists.
Yeah.
You get a revel in it. A small group of people and that have become larger over the past few years like it too. And as long as I continue that formula of just being contented and grounded, everything else happens because, dude,
totally.
I mean, I keep referencing going back to the conversation here, but you said, you know, I had a couple times where I'm super down or, you know, bummed out, depressed. I don't want to necessarily qualify it for you, but you know, you just sort of find your way out of it because you remind yourself that, oh, yeah, I've created this thing. I asked for this.
Yeah.
And I have to be grateful for what I've received. And yeah, it comes with a set of problems, but find your way through.
Life.
And that's life. Even for me, I'm telling you, Harry, this has been such a nice conversation because you've helped remind me that there's these things to just be happy about.
That means a lot to me. Thank you. That's constantly having to remind myself of that as well.
I am so happy for your success. I want nothing but the best for you. Before we let you go, would you tell the audience what's coming for Moonwalker or what's coming for you? Do you have other projects in the works? You mentioned a tour a second ago. Tell us.
Yeah. So I'm going back on tour tomorrow. So that's like
that's kind of a big deal.
Super coming. Yeah, exactly. That's very much on the horizon.
I knew this, by the way. I just wanted
but someone might not.
Yeah, that's right.
And then more tours in March, April. A lot of touring. No like release plans, but I will say that kind of being on this tour made me realize like before March, I need to have new music to play. And I would like for it to be new music that I make with my band. This is just like kind of personal realization that I'm having on the tour of like, damn, we're really getting tight. We're really getting good as a band. But we've played all these songs before. And so there's no longer that magic of like, in the set list, there should be like one or two songs you're like, I can't wait for you guys to hear this. You know what I mean? Like, I can't wait for this audience to hear this. And then there's songs that's like, I do this more for you. And then there's songs that's like, I might not be super excited about the song, but I love this solo section. I love, like, we've gotten so good on this. It's great to hit that harmony perfectly and blah, blah, blah. But I am feeling like we've got to get back to that place of like, there's 2 or 3 songs in the set that on a personal level, I can't wait to get there. So there will definitely be new music because I don't really even want to go on tour without it. There's other like scoring stuff that I'm exploring, nothing that's like set in stone yet. I'm working on like a comic book that would be sick if something happened there. But again, nothing at all like that is definitive or that I can control. Like I know the difference between like, if I want to make a record's going to get made and come out. If I want to go on tour, same thing. If I want to like do scoring stuff for a TV show, I can make all the music and just hope to God that they see what I see and that I get the opportunity.
For real.
I can't count on that. So I can't let that factor into anything. You know, I basically just have to like do it, forget about it, hope that good news comes back. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess that's all that's really direct.
That's all. That's all. You know, that's all. Just like 9 things.
and most importantly, beating Spider-Man 2 again.
Oh, there it is. There it is. The only thing that matters is
I will tell you, if we had this interview a couple days ago, I would have said the only thing on my brain, period, is beating Spider-Man 2. Like when I was on tour, because like I was seeing little spoilers and this game, I credit the first Spider-Man game as getting me out of one of the worst bouts of depression that I have had in the last couple of years. And so I really threw myself into this world in this game. If I was having a shit day, I would go into the open world and swing around. Like it just became kind of a constant like safe space for me. And so being on tour and seeing little spoilers, like, oh fuck, like oh shit, scroll really quick, you know, like I have to go finish this thing right now.